Welcome to the Collab Podcast. My name is Michelle.
And my name is Devin.
On this podcast, we explore concepts of self-mastery and community collaboration
through in-depth panel discussions and intimate interviews with dance's most prominent figures.
Yeah, she my peanut butter jelly snack, pull it ride, but she painting. That's my sunshine when it's raining. That's my boo, yeah. When I'm all alone, she pulled through.
All right, well, welcome back to the Collab Podcast. I'm here with Devin, and we also have a very special guest with us today. Today's guest is a force of positive light in what some can call a questionable time. A San Diego native and Mount Carmel High School alum, it was only fitting that Nikki add San Diego Charger Girl to her impressive resume. In 1999, Nikki had the opportunity to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show, Living Out a Dream, while simultaneously adding to her list of accolades. A teacher of 12 years, Nikki has used her reputation and influence for good and has become an advocate for the Black Lives Matter movement. With nearly 32 years of dance training, Nikki has become a mentor to her students and an inspiration to the community. From cheerleader to teacher, Nikki is one of the unsung heroines in our community and is the ideal guest to be celebrated on today's episode. Welcome, Nikki.
Hey, welcome, Nikki.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that introduction is going to make me cry. That was so amazing. Thank you.
I always say, because we Devin and I have so much fun writing these introductions because, we do our own research and everyone's like, oh my gosh, like I just saw my whole career flash in front of me. And it's like, it's all you. We just put it into words.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. Thank you. That was so great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, we're so excited to talk to you today. Particularly because you and I have a special connection. We both went to Mount Carmel High School together. And before we hit record, we realized that we're a few years off from each other. So I was a senior at the time that you were a freshman, right? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Awesome. All right. So you're a San Diego native. So tell us a little bit about, I'm so impressed with the fact that you've been dancing for 32 years. Tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got started dancing and where that passion came from.
Yes. Well, I began dancing in kindergarten. My parents put me in a ballet class, and it was something like soccer or Girl Scouts. I think they just found an activity and put me in, and I ended up loving it. I mean, I couldn't stop moving. And then from there, my parents were probably like, okay, I think this is the thing for Nikki. So I took a couple jazz classes in elementary school and middle school, and then started cheerleading in middle school and high school. And then at Mount Carmel, I did tap and hip hop and modern and lyrical, and was exposed to a couple more genres. And then I continued dancing on a dance team at Cal Poly. And I think in college, that was kind of like my dance awakening. I found salsa. I came back to hip hop. I also came back to Filipino cultural dance with PCE, the Filipino club on campus. And so, I love it. I can't imagine my life without it. And I think just finding new genres and continuing to learn has been my favorite part about dancing.
That's awesome. Devin also did Filipino folk dance for Pasaka. Nice.
Oh, I did too.
Oh, no way. That's so awesome. Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of incredible to hear all of the different dance styles that you were mentioning. But then when you said Filipino folk dance, I was like, oh, yes. Okay. I got you. Yes. We were totally connected in that way.
No, that was fun. I think I only did it for about a year in elementary school, but coming back to it in college was rewarding. Yeah, I really liked it.
Talk to us a little bit about why you felt that your experience at Cal Poly was sort of your awakening experience. Was it just because you were exposed to more styles, or did you find a style that you really loved and gravitated toward?
I think it was more exposure. Mount Carmel gave me some exposure, but being able to go back to ballet and just having more classes and more training, with that and salsa and the Filipino cultural dance was I would say the exposure.
That is amazing. Well, and the fact that you kept going. So, I mean, when I was 5, my mom put me in ballet and tap, and I was like, okay, this is fun for a minute. And then I was like, I'm bored. I don't want to do this anymore. And I stopped dancing for years. And only until my sister started dancing did I really, want to get back into it, more so because my brothers and sister were doing it, but also because I still had I felt like a little bit in me from, way back when. So I didn't really start until later in life, but I think it's incredible that you just really found the passion and you kind of just ran with it. I think that's awesome. Did you have supportive parents that were sort of cheering you on and behind you every step of the way?
I did. I would say I have 2 other sisters, and so my parents were kind of spread thin, but they were always there at games and competitions. And even when they couldn't make it to competitions, if I was in college, they were still really passionate about what I was passionate about.
I mean, that's pretty incredible. Again, I'm still hearing all the different dance styles that you had a chance to train in. I'd love to hear, at what point did you decide that being a Chargers girl was going to be added in that amazing list that you just shared with us?
Well, I kind of relate to Michelle, because I feel like even though I had exposure to dance growing up, I didn't have as strong of a foundation as a lot of people, even at Mount Carmel, who had taken studio classes for most of their lives. And so I think it was just, actually, I know when it was. We were doing a community service project. I was on the JV cheer team at Mount Carmel, and the Charger girls came. I think it was Relay for Life at UCSD. And the Charger girls came, and I met them, and they were just, I mean, as a high schooler, you're just like, oh my gosh, these are celebrities. And so I met them, and it was kind of always in the back of my mind. But honestly, I didn't think that I had enough training and talent to make the team, especially as, a cheerleader in high school. But I think later in life, it was just like, what do you have to lose to just audition and kind of go for it? So I went out on a whim, and it was kind of like a secret little yearning or a goal that started in high school.
So I know, our dad, he is a huge Chargers fan. And so I want you to talk a little bit about your experience being, a San Diego Chargers girl, but also, I mean, was your dad just a huge fan of the San Diego Chargers, and this was also his dream, that came to fruition?
Yes, I am a Charger fan because my dad is a huge Charger fan. I think I was in 6th grade when they went to the Super Bowl, and they won the AFC West. And that was a big moment for me and my dad. We watched all the games. I think we even drove down to, I don't know if it was Qualcomm or Jack Murphy at the time, to see them come back when they had won the AFC West title. And so, the Chargers have always been a part of our family. My dad's been a big fan. Our family is a fan too. And so it was definitely exciting. My dad got to go to a couple of Charger games, and I don't think we had been to Charger games before that, maybe some tailgates. So to be in the stands and pretty close to the sidelines where I was dancing, I think that was a special moment for him. I really enjoyed being part of the San Diego Charger girls just because I was a hometown native and I had seen them growing up, the Chargers and the Charger girls. So that was really special. Charger fans were so great. I don't think I could even express how just the experience of game day and being on the field and running out on the field, it just made my heart burst every time. And I think we had about 8 to 10 games, home games during that season. And every time was magical and exhilarating and fun. And I'm so glad that I kind of took the jump or took the risk and auditioned and made it.
That just gave me goosebumps. listening to you talk about your experience, like I could imagine it, like running out on the field and just feeling that like adrenaline in the rush. What an incredible journey that must have been. I'm very curious to know, we're reflecting on your past dance experience. How did it compare to going to audition for the San Diego Chargers? Because I imagine that the two were very, very different.
Yes, auditions, I always I explain it to people that it's more of, I mean, of course you have to have the training, and then there's like the look and the preparation and in like the physical and the makeup and the hair and everything. But I would say the biggest thing for auditions for me, that was a challenge and I was constantly working on, was the mental piece. And just telling yourself there's so many thoughts that come into your brain and they can sabotage you. And I think that was the biggest battle for me, was mentally preparing myself for auditions, and even throughout the audition process, just keeping a strong mental focus and reminding yourself that you're awesome and there are other awesome women. And just trying not to compare yourself. I would say that was the biggest challenge for auditioning.
That's so interesting because, we talk to a lot of, dancers on our podcast. That's where our focus is. And, I guess it shouldn't surprise me, but it does, because when, as dancers, you're on stage and you're performing and you're sort of putting yourself out there. But when you take a step back and you really start to dissect the mind of a dancer or performer, there's self-doubt seems to always come up. And it's so interesting to me because I think it's one of the many conflicts that we encounter as performers that you don't really see. There's sort of this facade when you're out and you're dancing for the public. So I think it's so interesting that you brought that up. What are some of the things that you, or some of the techniques or exercises that you did to sort of overcome that day-to-day conflict where you were doubting yourself?
Well, I'm really big into meditation. And so just calming my mind and being present and breathing, that still helps me. Even though I'm not auditioning. And then I would say affirmations. During the tryout process, I would put my these headphones in and kind of listen to some calming music and just keep repeating positive things like, I'm going to stick this routine, I'm going to shine bright, just all the positivity that I could give to myself. I would say, yeah, I was just showering myself with love.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Meditations and affirmations can be incredibly powerful, especially during stressful times such as auditions. How long was the audition process? Was it a span of a couple of days? And what were some of the things that they were asking you guys to do? Obviously learning routines and such, but was there anything specific that they had you guys do?
Yes, I'm going to try and remember everything. It feels so long ago, but you do have preliminary auditions. There are workshops offered, I want to say a couple weeks before, pre-audition workshops that are available. And then you have preliminary auditions where they select some finalists and you learn a routine for the first part. You also have across the floors, so they'll look at your technique, mostly your jazz technique. And then you learn a routine, you perform, they narrow down the finalists, and I want to say you learn the rest of the routine, the rest of the combination. So it's a little bit longer. And then you have interviews. You go home and you practice, and then you come back and you have interviews. I want to say 2 days after that. And then a couple days after that, you have finals. And so all the finalists are brought into one room and you are expected to also have a solo prepared. So you'll perform in groups of, I want to say 3, the routine that they taught you. And then they put on music and they just loop it. And everyone goes one at a time and performs in front of, all of the finalists and then the panel of judges. And then they announce it that night. They announce the team. So it is over, I would say. It's almost over a week, starting on a Sunday and I want to say ending on a Thursday, if I'm correct.
That's incredible. Talk about, having having the mental capacity. Devin has been to, an industry audition. I haven't, but, even just team auditions, just to have the mental capacity to go for one day, that is already emotionally draining, mentally draining, physically draining. I can't imagine going through a process that's, carried out over the week. What was the feeling like when you found out that you actually made the team?
I think obviously I was overjoyed, but then the inner critic in me is like, wait, are you sure? Are you sure I think that's a natural reaction for a lot of people. It's kind of like a out of body experience where you're looking at your number and you're like, I think I heard my number, but maybe I was off. But I was overjoyed and surprised and yeah, just ecstatic. And I knew that it would be a lot of hard work. And I don't think I knew, you never know if you haven't been on a team before, kind of what the next steps and like the journey has like really just begun. This sounds really cheesy, but it's just like a lot of work and but it's a fun journey, but it is a lot of work. It's a second job, definitely.
What would you say has been your biggest takeaway from that whole experience being a Chargers girl?
I would say the biggest lesson that I learned was it's pretty simple, just believing in yourself. And if you want something bad enough, then you will find like the energy and the perseverance inside of you to kind of fight for what you want and work hard to get it. So believing in yourself and working hard like can pay off.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more with that. So talk to us a little bit, Nikki, about how, you talked a lot about your experiences being a Charger girl. Talk to us about performing at the Super Bowl halftime show. That must have been incredible.
Yes, I do love having that on my list of highlights. I was a freshman in high school and they had an open call for any cheerleaders and dancers in San Diego in the area. And so there were a couple of friends that were cheerleading with me at the time and we all signed up. And basically anybody, I think high school age and college age, were able to participate. And there were a lot of rehearsals, but I got to go on the sidelines of the Super Bowl. I think I was on the Green Bay sidelines right before halftime. And that was amazing. I think that was my first time on the sidelines of an NFL game. And it's a Super Bowl, so that was just beyond. But I got to see Boys to Men. I think I was 10 feet away from Boys to Men on stage. We had a quick transition, and that's kind of like my highlight of Super Bowl is making eye contact with, I don't remember which one, but one of the members of Boys to Men. That was a great performance just to be a part of. I think Smokey Robinson was there. Just to see these people and to be a part of it. I don't think I realized that it was a big deal in high school. It was just like, hey, this is something that we get to do. And it's a Super Bowl. So, but yeah, that was really fun. Looking back, it was fun.
That's awesome. I can't imagine how that must have felt. I want to take a step back and kind of talk about how you trained or how you maintained training, through your Charger Girl career, because that's got to be physically demanding. And the reason why I bring this up is because, a big topic on our podcast has been can dancers be categorized as athletes? Do we consider dance an athletic sport? And there's a lot of debate that surrounds it. Obviously, as dancers, we believe that we are athletes because we put in the work and the time. But I'd be interested to hear your perspective on it and what kind of training you went through and really just, do you perceive dancers as athletes?
I definitely do. I've gotten into big arguments with people about this same topic, and dancers and cheerleaders as athletes. And I would definitely say that we should be considered athletes. And it's a little bit deceiving being an NFL cheerleader or an NBA, or I'm just going to say people with pom-poms, because you see the glitz and the glam on the field, and you might see a routine that looks kind of easy, but just the work leading up to that and kind of, like you said, getting to the place of, I guess, just the physical part of it. There is a lot that goes into it. And so there's a lot of training. I think that I was never a runner in life. I despised running. And to prepare for the Charger Girl auditions, I was actually running like 3 miles a couple times a week, which was a big deal for people who know me. But yeah, just getting in the physical, just getting into like your physical best. I think I was at my best preparing for this, but there were trainers that we worked with. And so we would have kind of HIIT workouts during our time on the team. I was also doing that in preparation for auditions. But every practice was about 3.5 hours long. And most of that was, some of it was meetings, but then you started off running. And I would say, I'm not sure like how long it actually was, but I would say at least a mile before practice, and then stretching and conditioning. And then just having the endurance to practice dances over and over and over again when you're cleaning them and you're going full out. Having that endurance really paid off, like in my preparation. But then we also had trainers who came and led us through some pretty strenuous workouts. We also were able to work out on our own. So I also went to the gym on the days that we didn't have practice, just keeping up with the cardio and weightlifting. Yeah, there was a lot physically. Sometimes each month we would have 8-hour practices on Saturdays if we didn't have a game. And so you're doing conditioning. Sometimes we were doing bar workouts in the beginning to kind of get warmed up. And then, more conditioning and practice.
Let there be no question about it. That sounds pretty athletic to me. How long were the routines that you learned, and how many routines did you learn over the course of the season? Because 3 to 8 hour practices on top of practicing on your own and all the training that you did outside of practice, that's a lot.
It was a lot. It was. I was very busy. I'm trying to recall how many routines we had. I would say at least 5 routines that were maybe about a minute. I want to say it was at the quarter breaks. We didn't perform at halftime, but so it'd have to be under 2 minutes, I think, but at least 5 routines that we would perform on the field. And then we had shorter dances that could be performed to any of the songs that are played in the stadium. And those are called sidelines. I would say at least 10. I think because the captains would hold the routine number on their fingers. And so if they held it on this side, it was a certain style of routine. And then if they held it on this side. So I want to say at least 9 or 10. I can remember a 5 and a 4.
Do you still remember the routines?
I try to. Whenever I want to work out, I just kind of put on music and I'm like, let's see, what do I have what do I have in my brain that I can remember? But no, sadly, I've forgotten a lot of them. I'll remember bits and pieces, or that I remember a song and I'll say, oh, I did a dance to this, but no, I don't remember all of them. I wish I did.
It's funny because, when we talk in dance and, you're talking about a minute routine, the audience only sees that minute routine, but they don't see like you said, the 3 hours, the 8-hour rehearsals that actually go into it, and all this time and prep that gets, invested into that 1 minute routine. And so I think it's really important, for our listeners to understand, whether you're a dancer or non-dancer, there's so much work that goes into that 1 minute, or there, these little 30-second blips of choreography, not only from a physical standpoint, but just from a creative choreography standpoint, whoever's choreographing it, there's so much that goes into it. So yeah, this is so cool. I've always wondered these things. And so to actually sit down and pick your brain is really cool for me. And I'm sure for Devin too.
It's actually funny because I was teaching middle school while I was on the Charger Girls. So that's why I said I had a full-time career and then a part-time job. So I was doing the two at the same time. So I had been teaching, I want to say, for 5 years before I did Chargers.
All right. So then taking a step back, what made you want to become a teacher?
Well, both my parents are educators. My dad is still a teacher at Mesa Verde, and he's taught 6th grade for almost my whole life. And my mom is a resource specialist. So I just grew up in classrooms. I always had to help out both my parents, setting up classrooms and doing things wherever I could help throughout the year. And so I want to say it was kind of my path from the get-go. I did go to school. I went to Cal Poly and I studied graphic communications, which is printing and kind of web stuff. But I did that for about 1.5 years and decided that it wasn't for me. And so that's when I tried teaching, and I loved it and never looked back.
Did you ever consider becoming a dance teacher or a cheer teacher?
I didn't. I guess I wasn't really a teacher, but I led a club at my first school. It was a private school, and I started the first cheer and dance club. And they were like kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders, and they were just so cute. It was so cute. Because they were at a private school, so they had private school uniforms, and their palms matched that and everything. So we just did little events around campus. If there was a basketball game or a soccer game or volleyball. And then we also volunteered there was a run, I forget what it's called, in LA at the Staples Center every year. But we did that for a couple of years. So I did get to, work with the littles.
That must have been so fun. Do you still dance? I mean, I know that we're in a weird time, being in quarantine, with the current pandemic, but are you still taking classes? Are you taking any virtual? Do you just dance in your living room?
Yep. I dance in my living room. That's how I get my workout in a lot of the times. I have found a couple dance studios up here that I was kind of just starting to get back into dance. And I've taken a couple dance classes online since the pandemic and shelter in place. But I have had to take a little bit of a break because I actually had a heart attack back in February. And so that has really affected my workouts now. And so jumping back into dance, it's been a couple months, so I'm kind of slowly building back up to that. But before this happened, I was definitely taking dance classes. But right now, I think just physically, I'm not back to where I need to be in order to take a class and kind of feel like I'm doing my best.
I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're here to talk to us. I mean, and that's probably a very personal experience, so we won't ask about it. But I can imagine what a physical toll that must have taken on you, emotionally, mentally, physically. And I'm glad that you're back in it and you're starting to dance again.
Yes, and that's why I think I'm like slowly dancing in my living room. But yes, I want to get back into it. I think once I feel like I'm physically able to. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah. I think the best place to do it is your living room. I know that I've tried to take some virtual classes but sometimes, you just don't feel like following choreography. So sometimes it's just fun to turn the music on. So Nikki, I said it in the intro, you're sort of this positive light in what we can call a very questionable time. You've used your reputation and your credibility, and you've created this beautiful platform to actually speak out and be very vocal about the Black Lives Matter movement. I've seen a lot of your Instagram posts. I think you posted something a couple days ago about all these books, the stack of books that you were recommending. And I just love that you're using your platform as an opportunity to educate people. I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of your cultural makeup and kind of where that came from and what propelled you to say, I want to be vocal about this. I want to stand up for this.
I would definitely say that my Instagram feed has gotten different in the last, it's very different from what it used to be in the last couple of months. But just to kind of go back to, I guess, your first question, I am seen, I guess, what people call your street race is, I'm seen as a Black woman, but my dad is Filipino and my mom is Black. So I am biracial and identify as biracial, but I know that I'm viewed in the world as a Black woman first. And so I think that these last couple of months have really shed light for a lot more people on kind of the Black and Brown experience. And I would say for me, it has been an awakening. I think as someone who is biracial, I've experienced a lot of things throughout my life. And I know that a lot of other people have too. And you kind of think that something's not right or it doesn't sit well with you. It just feels wrong. And now I think with a lot of the books that are coming out and the information that is just being shared so widely, you are able to put a name and a term to a lot of the things that have been happening for a long time, like microaggressions and gaslighting, white privilege, white fragility, systemic racism. Just having terms, I think, has definitely made me feel empowered, that I can call something and it's not just like, oh, remember that experience? Like that just left me feeling really icky. But now I know that, one, I'm not the only one. This is a shared experience, unfortunately. But yeah, just becoming more informed over the last month. And just, I've been doing a lot of reflecting on my experiences. And as I'm finding information, I think as a teacher and someone who just is a lifelong learner in dance and in everything else, I feel, I feel the need to just share the information in little bits and pieces so that other people might have like an aha moment, like, oh yeah, that's gaslighting and that happened to me. Or, yeah, I think that's kind of been my journey this summer and a couple months before that.
One of the things that I love, as we were doing research for this episode and I was going through your Instagram, one of the things that I love, and you said, how your Instagram has sort of evolved over the last few months. But what I love is that it's really put in a beautiful positive, very like educational, very matter-of-fact way, like the things that you're posting. It's not, it's not strongly opinionated one way or another, or sort of, forcing your views on people. It's just out there for people to see and take in and digest. And I think that that's really beautiful. And you have sort of this eloquent way of sharing this information. And I want to hear what your thoughts are on what we can do as a community to continue to have these discussions. Is it us also sharing information on our Instagram? Is it, having coffee with a friend? Is it, watching more documentaries? I'd love to hear your perspective on some of the things that we can do as a community to, continue this discussion and make progression in the right direction.
I would say, in order to kind of continue to make progress, a lot of the things you already brought up, reading books, if that's your thing. I know that I'm a big reader. I've been a big reader for most of my life. And so books are a way for it's enjoyment and it's also information. So if you are a reader, I think that there is a lot of information out there on the internet and on social media. But I also want to kind of add the caveat that you have to kind of fact check your sources sometime. I know that sometimes I'll read something and get really worked up about it, and then I'll kind of do some research on my own, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad I didn't post that, or so just kind of doing your background checks, I guess. I would say, I love that I've seen in the last couple months just kind of the solidarity from the Black and Brown community. A lot of friends who are Filipino are speaking up about, Black Lives Matter and making that known, that it's okay to kind of be a part of this movement. And I know that might be difficult in certain like families, just in terms of the relationships of, I don't know, just in terms of relationships, but the solidarity is nice. I think just as Black and Brown people, we should be standing up for all of us, because, freedom for us is like freedom for everybody. And so I think, just looking at your body, I think I think the biggest thing that people can do is just kind of examine their own biases and keep an open mind to changing their mind. So if they learn something new, then even if it's been done this way for years, or they've had this thought, for a long time, just seeing, is that biased? Is that the best way to think of it? Or is there a new way that I can look at it? And just doing the inward reflection first.
I love that you talked about that. We definitely have to be okay with questioning ourselves and calling out ourselves when we're wrong. We're humans, we make mistakes, but we're also capable of learning. And I think that's really important if we're trying to be strong allies and trying to impact the community in such a way. Michelle mentioned earlier that you posted on your Instagram a stack of books. I would love for our listeners to hear a little bit more about your recommendations if they're just maybe starting to get into learning about the Black Lives Matter movement, or just some really excellent books in your recommendation.
I'd love to give some recommendations. I would say that there are definitely a lot of books out there, and I think I bought them all this summer, and I have not had a chance to read every single one of them, but I do have the intention of doing so. Just I think in terms of kind of the Black experience, I have 2 books. How to Be Black, which is more of a satire. And they kind of, let's see, I want to say the author is Baratunde Thurston. I think that's the author. And he brings in some other voices in his book. And then the other one is I'm Still Here by Austin Channing Brown. I think that's, I read How to Be Black first, and that was from the perspective of a Black male. And then I'm Still Here is from the perspective of a Black female. So I'm kind of balancing that out. Let's see. I haven't read this one, but Stamped from the Beginning and How to Be Anti-Racist. I know that those have been trending on book lists for a while. Another book that I think I've only read like 2 pages into is So You Want to Talk About Race? And I would have to check on the author's name and pronunciation. I know it starts with an I. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. Yes, I would say those are the books.
Well, and we can touch base with you, Nikki, afterwards, and be sure to link those in the show notes so that our listeners have links and access to those recommendations. Yeah, I actually took a snapshot of your Instagram post because I was like, I gotta look these up. I want to read all of them. Yeah, I love reading too, and I just haven't had a chance to do it. And what better opportunity to read and actually learn some things. So thank you for sharing those book recommendations. I appreciate it. Let's switch gears, and we're going to do something a little bit sort of quirky and fun. We do this in all of our podcast episodes, and this is just a fun way for our listeners to get to know you. It's our rapid fire question segment. Devin is going to ask you just quick questions. We're going to get through as many as possible. I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds on my phone, and just 5 seconds, first thing that comes to mind. Okay, Devin, let me set the timer.
All right, Nikki, first question, dance or cheer?
Dance.
Favorite artist to dance to?
Beyonce.
SD Chargers or LA Chargers?
Oh, a part of me just broke inside. San Diego Chargers, always.
One word to describe your dance style.
That's hard. Energetic.
NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
NSYNC, definitely.
All right, we're at time. I wanted to get that last one in.
I feel like I should have asked NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, or Boys to Men since you had that encounter at the halftime show.
Oh, I think I would have said Boys to Men then, but I still love NSYNC.
I do too. Yeah, NSYNC fans for life.
Yeah, I remember, Nikki, a funny story. My girlfriends were split. I mean, Teresa. So Teresa and a couple of my other friends, they were like really big Backstreet Boy fans, and they camped out in Mira Mesa in front of like, I can't even remember the name. It was like a record store. I can't remember the name, but they camped out in front of it. And they were like, come on, Michelle, like, come camp out with us. And I was like, I refuse because I'm a hardcore NSYNC fan. I refuse to buy tickets for Backstreet Boys, but I will show up early and bring you hot cocoa. But I refuse to sit here with you.
You're still a nice friend for doing that.
And I'm pretty sure they went to the concert and had a great time, but I was like, I refuse to go.
I would have too. Sorry, Teresa.
I know that I can probably speak for Devin. It's been a pleasure, and we'll start to wrap up. But one of the things that we always do at the end of each episode is we ask our guests to highlight something positive in the dance community, and that's just because there are so many things that even Devin and I don't really know, and it doesn't have to be a person or an event necessarily. It can just be a concept. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts on what's good in the dance community right now.
Something for me that is good, I would say in the dance and music industry, is Beyonce's Black is King. I think I honestly cried at the end of it. It was so moving and it was beautiful, and just the concept and the artwork, and just everything involved with it. It was just so gorgeous and so much joy. And I think something that I needed right now, that is very good in my opinion.
That's a great answer. I love that answer. Awesome. Well, Nikki, it has been a pleasure sitting here and talking to you. I am going to say it again. You're just this ball of light and positivity, and I think that you deserve to be celebrated. I know it probably in your mind doesn't seem like you're doing much, but the fact that you're using your platform to speak out on such important matters, I think is just beautiful and just goes to show what type of person you are. And we feel so blessed that we had the opportunity to talk to you today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure too, being with you and Devin. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Nikki.
Please don't bring your friends.
Thank you so much for listening to the Collab podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please show your support by leaving a review on iTunes.
And be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts.
The conversation continues over on Instagram and YouTube with highlights from today's episode.
When you on the way, make that move. Can't stay dead, no, that's my boo. Yeah, that's boo.